teachers slash childcare workers of Reddit. What is worst case of helicopter parenting slash my child can do no wrong you've ever seen? I had a boy who kept acting out in class. Things like talking to classmates while I was giving directions, giving strange answers, hitting the boy sitting next to him in the arm, grabbing a boy's peen during class. I kept notes and informed our academy director about what was happening, and he was pulled aside after school a few times to talk about his behavior. One day, at the end of class, he reached across the table and forcefully flicked a girl in the forehead. She complained and he cocked back his arm like he was going to punch her in response. I had him sit while I let everyone else leave and told him to stay seated while I discussed his behavior with the academy director. If nothing else, being the last one to go would be a sort of punishment. The director chewed him out and apparently he told his mom about it because his mom came to the academy to say that her son was an angel and I should be reprimanded for exaggerating or lying about the situation. Cue the director listing off all the crap her son had done over the past few weeks and telling her that her son was no longer welcome at the academy. Never saw him again after that. While studying, I work in an after-school care. One day a 9-year-old was showing everyone his lighter by trying to set the shirt he was wearing on fire. I obviously took the lighter off him. When his mother came to pick him up, I handed it to her and told her about him trying to set his shirt on fire. Turns out it was her lighter, so I had no right to confiscate it, and her son just wouldn't try to set his clothes in fire because he's not an idiot. So I must be making that up. I once had a parent tell me the reason his son told the band director, "I don't have to listen to you because you suck." Band director was a young gay male, fresh out of college, was because he was recently diagnosed with ADD. When I responded that I had been diagnosed with ADD as a child and still struggled with it, but it had never once caused me to tell anyone else that they sucked peen, he became belligerent and started threatening me. Pretty sure the kid is in jail now. My mom owned a daycare center, and I worked there when I wasn't in school. There were some very unique kids and some crazy ass parents. The one that comes mind though had a 6-year-old son. This kid was an incredible brat, but as soon as you met his parents you understood why. He had just started school and was coming home upset because kids were making fun of him because of his pacifier that he kept with him and used throughout the day. So his mom decided to wait with him at the school bus stop and pick him up from there. One day they were waiting and he mentioned he had a wedgie. So right there at the bus stop, in front of all the kids in his class and the crossing guard, his mom picked it for him, just stuck her hand down his pants and took care of it for him. She wouldn't even let him handle his own wedgie. Needless to say, that did not help with his cheesing. In kindergarten we have testing twice a year, one in winter and again in the spring. A parent called in a conference because her daughter had received 2% under the cutoff that suggested her child may, by 3rd grade, need additional help meeting reading goals. Now, that isn't why I consider her a helicopter parent. Those test scores can be confusing, and I could see why she might have been worried upon seeing that if she didn't really understand the way it worked. However, myself and my mentor teacher spent about 45 minutes with her kid in the room hearing everything, trying to console her that her daughter was doing fine and that we weren't concerned about her progress at all. We told her she interacts well with her peers, feels confident and comfortable reading, and that these tests aren't a good way to showcase understanding, especially for a 5-year-old. The mother revealed that she makes her daughter do over 30 minutes of homework every night and won't even let her walk downstairs without reciting all of her weekly spelling words. Other stuff too, but basically the mom was putting unreasonable pressure on this 5-year-old girl, like planning college and thinking years ahead. Just relax, your kid is 5. If we have any concerns, trust me, you would know. Don't burn your kid out this early in their education. I had a 3rd grade student whose mother felt that I favored other students over her son. She would call me and yell at me about not treating him fairly and lying. She snuck past the office a few times to come into the classroom to watch me teach, which of course is illegal, and I'd have to call the office. She'd tell me and the principal that she was trying to catch me in the act of being dishonest. Of course my principal always defended me and dealt with the parent. As a final straw, the mother bought a watch with a voice recorder in it, and the boy wore it to school. He yelled out in the middle of class suddenly, "I'm secretly recording you, and you won't teach here for much longer." An 8 years old. Of course the watch was confiscated, and the child was moved into a different classroom, though the school district could have legally moved him into another. But the mother still never backed down, and the next teacher had similar issues. Before uni started, we used to hold activities for first year students. Frosh Week for Canadians reading this. Nothing educational, but always good fun. Had a student show up with his mother, and she questioned everything we were doing and how it will relate to her son's studies. It didn't. We were very clear that it was all for building relationships and a bit of pre-study enjoyment. It was also a chance to meet older students and get an idea of uni life. She was having none of it. She wanted to speak with the head of department and file an official complaint about these activities. Clearly having fun was not part of an education. The second day she came again and triumphantly said the dean is coming to talk to us. The dean did come, gave us a pep talk, and said how much he enjoyed this time of the year, chugged a drink, and told us to join him in the local pub later on. She was speechless and left in a huff, dragging her son by the hand. Neither showed up for the rest of the week. Music teacher here. I had a helly mom of one of my guitar students sitting on him during his first lesson. She was sitting right by him, shoulder to shoulder. As I was talking about various things like how to hold the guitar and how to shape your hands and fingers around the neck, she would grab his hand and do it for him. Every single time. For everything. Time to strum some chords? Mom did that for him too. Can't get the fret hand to squeeze hard enough to make the strings ring? She pressed his fingers for him. He cried out at that, and that's when I stopped and told her she had to let him do it on his own. All I got for that was a sharp look and a fine then. He tried on his own and the string just made kind of a thud noise, and she said, "See, he needs me to help him." I told her that the only way he was going to be able to do it was to try and do it on his own. He was the one who had to build up the strength. Things didn't really progress much after that, and I ended the lesson with all of that. I wasn't thinking they'd be sticking around for a second week, but back they came. Second lesson started off the same, and I politely told her she'd have to give him space in order to try. Still she wasn't thrilled, but relented and got up in a huff and went out into the hall to watch from there. After she left, this kid took a deep breath and was visibly more relaxed. After she stepped out, he was able to have his own space and he actually tried on his own. He started to do better. It was awesome. At the end of the lesson he said he couldn't wait to come back, and his mom came in and grilled him with something like, "Why can't you do that when I'm helping you? You don't want my help? You don't need my help?" I could understand stuff like this if he was a young kid, 7 or younger, but dude's 14 years old. He's going to be a freshman in the fall. This poor kid has ended up being one of my best students. His mom still hovers, and he's still a super weird and socially awkward dude from living in a bubble, but he's finally found something he can be good at independently from his mom. It's really rewarding to see him gaining more and more confidence, even if it is slowly. He'll get there someday. I taught middle school for 1 year. We had a student who was being disruptive in all the classes. He was refusing to turn in work, or even do it. He was constantly causing trouble. We had each tried several strategies to deal with the behavior in our own time. We had each talked to the parents numerous times, but they never did anything, nor believed that the student was doing anything inappropriate. No one was having any success. Eventually one of the teachers had enough, so he suggested we do a meeting between all of the students' teachers, the guidance counselor, a vice principal, the student, and his parents. There are 6 teachers plus the vice principal and the guidance counselor, all saying the same basic version of, student needs to pay attention, needs to do the work, needs to stop distracting other students, needs to be respectful, etc., etc. The mother disbelieves us. It's not the student's fault. We all have it in for the student. Nothing changed. Teaching sucks. Work at a summer camp, and we told scary stories. One of the boys in the camp couldn't sleep for the whole week because of some of the stories, so his mom demanded the scary stories be banned, otherwise she would basically badmouth our programs. The next Monday the boy complained to me that we couldn't tell scary stories anymore and was upset about it. Tell that to your freaking mom. An incredibly quiet student just flat out refused to engage in any discussion in class. She was an extremely pleasant girl. She just wouldn't speak. I brought it up with her mother during an interview, and she told me she'd forbidden her daughter to express her opinion and to just listen to the teacher out of fear they wouldn't agree with her opinion and mark her down out of bias. I assured her that expressing an opinion wouldn't get a student marked down in my class and that developing one is important to her learning, but she just said I'd rather she didn't. Criminal defense lawyer here. I was talking to my 23-year-old client in the hallway before court. His mom walked up to me and said forcefully, "He is a child. Do you understand me? A child." Because she was upset that he was in trouble with the law. Less helicopter parent. More my child is innocent and a scam. My mom was kicked out of work, temporarily, from her underprivileged school until this case was settled. A kindergartner had just gotten her ears pierced, and she took the earrings out in class because they hurt. The teacher sent her to the health secretary, my mom, and the little girl lost an earring somewhere along the way, cleaned the ears, and sent her back to class. Mother of the child sued my mom and filed a case with the school because I guess the earrings were solid gold and diamond. I guess that's what Claire's pierced with. Seems legit. Tried to accuse my mom of stealing the earring. No chance that a 6-year-old lost a tiny object. Of course the woman did not win in this situation and my mom got back to work, but it was a whole bunch of baloney. Accusing the teachers and office employees at the school for a lost earring and injured earlobe. I wasn't a teacher, but I did have a brief stint as a cheerleading coach. Kid gives an attitude about doing literally anything. Won't follow any instruction, and usually either sasses me or sits on her phone. Additionally, kid skips practice to snort Xanax and put it on her Snapchat. Okay, I told her that if she wasn't interested in participating, she can sit in the stands Friday night instead. Kid proceeds to go to bathroom and calls mother. It's not like I can actually take away their phones. Try dealing with parents on that. Mother drives from work 30 minutes to scream at me for almost an hour. Apparently it is my fault. Her child is the best on the team and I'm clearly targeting her. She says I have destroyed her confidence and I'm jealous of her talent. She can do whatever she wants if she's the best on the squad. Ooh, okay lady. I stopped coaching after that year. While I was student teaching I had a student and his mom was the art teacher. The student was a straight up douche, would cheat on any assignment, belittle classmates, etc. Anytime the student got in trouble or called out he would run to his mom, the art teacher, and she would fight for him. All the teachers in the schools were afraid of her since she has been in the district for a long time and was thought to do no wrong by the administration. The student ended up plagiarizing an essay in class. I gave the student a 0, as it was stated in the assignment sheet that all plagiarism would be an automatic 0, and all hell broke loose. Meetings with the principal were set up. Mom would come in during my plan period and rip my ass for failing her kid, and the student would come fake crying to class. The work, the essay, was a large portion of the grade and would mean he would fail the class. After about 2 weeks of the mom coming in, I finally told her if he turned a new essay into me by the end of week he could get 50% credit on it, would move his grade to a D if he got a 100%. The student comes waltzing into class on Friday and hands me his essay. After quickly scanning the essay it just seemed off. After a quick Google search, the student took the entire Wikipedia page and copied it for his essay. After school, I went down to the art room to talk to the mom. I still remember the conversation like it was yesterday. Me, M did a great job on his essay. Mom, great. He was locked up in his room all week working on it. Me, when I looked at his paper I did notice there was an odd section though. Mom, what do you mean? Me, this section has a superscript number on it, and I don't see where he cited it. Mom, that is odd. I'll ask him about it. Me, pulls out the printed Wikipedia page over his topic. That is word for word. Here is the Wikipedia page over his topic, if you want to look at. Mom, scanning over both and her face turns ghost white. Will he be able to make this up? Me, with a look of disbelief on my face. Hell no. The student ended up getting suspended, and mom tried to fight the suspension. She even went as far to look into the legitimacy of the grade, since a student teacher taught the course. All in all, the mom is no longer a teacher in the district and the kid is in jail for selling drugs. The rest of the staff loved me for standing up to her and her so. Okay, 2 great stories. 1. Happened in 2006. A parent who volunteered in her child's classroom just to videotape her child all day, every day. She threatened to sue if we did not allow her to. She did this all through elementary. It ended in middle school when they told her no. She stood outside the fence and videotaped him at pen. Someone saw this and called the police. She pulled her kid and homeschooled him. 2. Happened to a brother and sister I went to high school with. The son was socially awkward, tall and a little round. He was in high school for only a year by himself, but his mom was present at every band function we had. She even tried to come to every practice, even the ones from 9 AM 9 PM. But then she decided that her 7th grade daughter was going to skip the 8th grade so she could enter high school early. Now she had 2 kids. She was always at school, even stopping by to lunch with them. It was so sad. The kids were miserable. Then she had her daughter slip the 11th grade, literally appealing to the school board, threatening legal action if they held back her child from her destiny. So now she has both kids in the same grade. They graduate together. Mom enrolls them in community college together, in the same classes with her. So she is now going to classes with them. She never actually passes the classes, but she wants to be with them so that the professors know she is watching. Since she is a student, there are no grounds for having her removed. The kids get ready to transfer to the local university. They are done with mom. She tries to sit in on classes, but that is a big no from day one. They diverge in interests, so they get their own majors. Then they go nuts with classes, appealing to admin to take a huge load of credits. They are in school all day every day they can. How I met up with them again was weird. I was working on campus and closed the library one night. I found them bedding down for the night in their old station wagon in the parking lot. I offered to let them stay overnight with me. They came to my house and told the tale. Last I heard, the daughter dropped out and went into the medical field. I'm a nanny on the Upper East Side of New York, and while my boss is a good non-helicopter father, I routinely have play dates with other kids. I have a 4, 8, and 13-year-old, so I've seen it all. My 2 favorites though, a mother of one of my girl's little friends called my boss up furious and insisting he fire me because I let her child play with sidewalk paint. She was mad I made her 7-year-old use a paintbrush instead of doing the drawing for him after he told me what he wants. He cold poked his eye out with a brush according to her, and it was irresponsible. The saddest part was that little boy told me before he left how fun it was we made the paints ourselves and then got to use them. My 13-year-old had a sleepover, and I got a 4-page list of things one girl wasn't allowed to do or eat. When I asked her about it, she told me she was only allergic to hazelnuts, and everything on the list was there because her mom didn't want her getting fat. I let her eat with the girls. We had build your own nacho/quesadilla thing, and I took them to our bodega that is legitimately less than 250 feet away. It's the bottom level of an apartment building on our corner and we are not even in the middle of the block, and got candy and soda to watch movies around 10 after they begged me to do so. And her mother informed my boss 2 days later her kid was no longer allowed to be friends with his daughter, and it was my fault, as it was irresponsible for me to let 4 girls leave the house after dark, with a chaperone or not. I also have a great one about my 4-year-old's team hockey mom threatening to call CPS on me so she could get my boss attention. But that's less helicopter parenting and more pathetic. I'll give 2 examples. One suburban, one inner city. Suburban kid asked where dogs came from. Not sure why. I was an English teacher. I said they were bred from wolves, and gave 2 common explanations for how human interaction may have started. Mom called the school, then called me, freaking out that I mentioned evolution. Turned into a whole thing. In a city, teen sucker punched some poor girl, then punched me in the face when I broke them up. Ended up getting escorted off by campus cop. Dad, who was obviously a crackhead, showed up to the school and started threatening to kick everyone's ass. Had a pretty typical red/yellow/green behavior chart. One child was just transferred to me. Not a completely terrible kid, but had a habit of not know where the line was, so it got him in trouble from time to time. Every time I flipped his card to a yellow or red would always let the parent know what happened and what we are going to do to stop the behavior in future. She then goes off on how it's the other little kid causing the problems and her child is perfect. I'll let her know that, while there isn't a perfect person in the scenario, both kids could have acted in a different way. She then stated, and I'm not kidding, I know, that the other kid is a dirty foster child. Still to this day, don't know how she learned this, and he assaulted my child. Foster child pushed back, after getting hit by her child. She did this in front of the other child. I told her to meet me in the office. Had a meeting with the director, and she was no longer allowed in my classroom. However, had to take down my behavior chart, which kinda blew, because of how well it was working. I had a student who was failing pretty badly. He had a pretty bad attitude and was extremely disrespectful. When I called his father, the response was, "You're a woman. He doesn't need to respect you." I handed the phone to a male mentor teacher, pretty dumbfounded, and explained the situation. The male teacher proceeded to ream the dad out and then had the kid transferred from my class to his class. The kid still failed and was still a disrespectful ass. Not sure what the dad had to say about that, but at least he couldn't blame it on me being a woman. I once took a babysitting job when I was 17 to earn some extra cash. The 9-year-old child wanted to play soccer inside. I told him many times not to do it, and even took the ball away. He had another one, and kicked the ball all around the house, completely ignoring me. He broke a lamp, some picture frames, after knocking down a shelf, and a window. When the parents came home, they blamed me for the damages and thought I was screwing around in the house. Why? Because the kid said I was doing that. Never took another babysitting job after that. First grade, my second or third year, I had a kid whose mother was my first legit, extreme helicopter mom. She would walk him into the classroom every morning and put his backpack and folder away for him and then sit at his table with him, and he would cry and cry for her not to leave. The crying is normal at the beginning of the year, but at this age they don't cry for very long. Once the parent has left, after about 5 minutes, he would be fine, but she would take 20 minutes to leave because she didn't want to leave him like that. I asked her a few times to let him get his things ready by himself, but I was young and this kid was a surprise kid, had brother and sisters with kids of their own, and parents were older. She didn't give a flying crap what I would say. That's when I started rationalizing with the kid. Much easier. Do you see how all of your friends put their own backpacks and folders away every day? You're a big boy too. You don't need your mommy to do that for you, do you? Worked like a charm. After the second week I started physically blocking her at the classroom door. I'm a big girl. Have them say their goodbyes and have him go in the room by himself. The first time this happened, he snatched the backpack from her and said, "I can do it. I'm a big boy." She was mad. One morning during the third or fourth week I had a meeting, and it wasn't over before school started. The person covering my class didn't know to block her, and she let crazy mom in. When I came back, the kid was crying his eyes out, chasing his mom around the classroom, and she was smiling and giggling about his fit that she caused. Around December, mom had told the kid that he was going to be homeschooled and wouldn't go back to our school. When she dropped him off the next day, he cried and cried, and we could not console the poor kid. She left him at the door and smiled at me because he was so upset when she left. After a few hours he had finally calmed down enough to tell us the problem. My mom said I was going to go to school at home and I wouldn't have to come here today, but she lied. She told him she was going to homeschool him so that he would cry when she left him at public school. WTF. He had one friend in the class, super sweet boy who would play with anyone. The crazy mom kid would punch other kids if they got in the swing next to his friend. No one else was allowed to swing next to him. Crazy mom called me and asked if I could just let them two play inside alone so her kid could have him all to himself. Not in those exact words, but that's what she was asking. Nope, not an option. Cut to April, and we had a zoo field trip. Our whole class had our lunches in a cooler that was in the bus in the zoo parking lot, except his and his mom's. She insisted that she carry theirs, and she doesn't want them in the cooler. Whatever. We had a meeting time and place for lunch, because parent chaperones took small groups of kids around. We didn't stay in one big group. Had to wait about 10 minutes for a very nice dad to fetch the cooler with the lunches. Perfect. Waited on the stragglers and let kids use restroom and wash hands while waiting. During this time, kid comes up to me and asks if I have a knife to peel his apple. Yeah. I always bring a knife to the zoo. No. The kind of knife you need to peel an apple isn't allowed in the zoo. Just eat it with the peel on. You'll be fine. He walks away. Lunches get to us, and I make sure everyone is eating and accounted for. Come to crazy mom who is peeling her kid's apple with her car key. What? When she saw me walking up she said, "It's better to eat the peel separately. It's healthier with that smile." I say, I hope you sanitized the key before you started. Otherwise, it won't be healthy at all. Then I returned the same smile. At this point, she hands the apple to the kid, and he said he didn't want it. She was flabbergasted. Why not? I just spent 20 minutes peeling it for you. He said, "That's gross." You used a car key, and walked away to play with his friends. There are more stories about this parent from other teachers as he moved through the school. She once snuck into the school to get a picture of him taking his first standardized test. This was literally against the law in TX. Photographs during state testing, and they had to contact the testing officials and fill out tons of paperwork, and our school had to reschedule the testing dates. All because crazy mom wanted a picture of her baby taking his first test for his scrapbook. Didn't mean for this to be so long. Sorry, that mom still pisses me off when I think about her and how she effed up her kid's life. This is a little different from the rest of these, but it sprung to mind. I taught a 5-year-old whose very eccentric and wealthy mother came in to meet with us before he started to tell us that he had some developmental and social issues and needed a little extra attention and help understanding things. Note that at this age a lot of kids aren't officially tested yet for anything. He comes in, and we discover after a week or two that he is absolutely 100% freaking fine developmentally. He's just horribly behaved and has never been disciplined in his entire life. He was a nightmare who was rude, entitled, and bratty, but he was perfectly smart, and once we got through to him about what behavior was expected of him, he could easily do it. She was a lazy parent who, instead of admitting that he was a brat, chalked it up to disabilities. To sum it up, there's no way that my child can be wrong. Something must be wrong with him. Not a teacher or child caretaker. But I remember when I was in 8th grade, this little kid, about 3rd or 4th grade, was really weird and hung around us while we skateboarded. One day he decided to come up after I fell and just hump me. I was obviously mad and told him to go away, and he didn't. Well, I fell another time and he humped me again. I was livid. I told him, if he doesn't go away I'll tell his parents. Then he just walked up to me while I was sitting on the bench and humped me again. I told him, I'm going to tell your parents. And he bolts inside his house, closing everything. All the guys and I were fed up too. So I decided to go to walk to his house and knock on his door. No one answered for about a minute. Then both his mom and dad was a cop, come out. I told them what he did. Well, his mom completely ignores what I say and then explains, well, he said you punched him multiple times. Mind you, I did not punch this kid, but I did push him off twice when I fell, and pushed him away from me when I was on the bench. Not one of the times did he fall or stumble, I just gave a simple push. She continues to berate me, saying I'm a child beater, and then the dad chimes in and says he should arrest me. Well, of course I start crying because I'm scared. I again reiterated that I never hit him, I simply pushed him because of his unacceptable behavior. Then they tell me how he has ADHD and was just acting out. I say, well, I was diagnosed with that a couple years ago and it's never made me doing anything like what he did. Then the dad screams, if you don't get off my lawn I'm going to arrest you, and starts walking towards his cop car. All of us run away as fast as we can, and I run home. Well, after a while my dad gets home and I tell him all of this. So he calls his buddy who's the guy's superior and tells him what happens. Apparently the dad was going to get a promotion, but they just kept him as is. He got suspended from the police force for a couple weeks and got kicked off the neighborhood board members committee. They suspended him on unlawful use of power or something like that. He came up to my house and personally apologized, put his house up for sale, but took it off because it never sold. They're still there, and the kid is still as fricked up today.